Hello, my name is Ali Condon, and today I'm going to be giving my presentation on transgenders and society. This presentation explores the complex narrative of history of transgender individuals and societies they live in, beginning with the history of transgenders and where it originated from, as well as a brief overview of the society's ideals of them throughout time. There will be first-hand testimonies from current transgender people in society who I've personally interviewed, including their male-to-female and female-to-male experiences, in which they highlight their experiences and challenges as being a transgender, from being misgendered to navigating public spaces like restrooms where safety and comfort are not guaranteed. Through this presentation, I hope to shed some light on their stories and dive into the emotional and societal struggles that many transgender individuals face. I had the wonderful opportunity to speak with these individuals and truly learn from their experiences that lead them into the people they are today. In a world like today, you've probably heard the word transgender come up once or twice, at least in conversation. But what exactly is transgender, and how does this word transgender affect people in society that identify as this term? In this presentation, I hope to shed some light on what being transgender is and explain why it's important to explore what it means. When we first begin to look at the idea of gender, we think of two things, male or female. This is one of the most basic ways of identifying ourselves. When we are born, we are assigned a specific gender and the expectations that come with it. Often the first words we hear are, "It's a boy," or "It's a girl." However, for some people, this assigned gender doesn't truly reflect who they are. Gender for most people is believed to be set in stone, as in the world that we live in today, most people follow a very simple set of ideas that there are two genders. However, for millions of people, they might believe that their gender doesn't align with their inner sense of self. The idea of gender for them is to be explored, questioned, painful, and deeply personal. They are what you call the definition of transgender. The gender assigned at birth is often reinforced by the people around us, whether it's parents, religious groups, or personal connections. For transgender individuals, however, the expectations placed on them might not align with their true identity. While many people feel comfortable with the gender they were assigned at birth, like I do, enjoying being known as female and using she/her pronouns, others may feel that the label that they were given doesn't reflect who they truly are. There is also the term sex, which is commonly referred or confused with the word gender. Sex is what everyone is biologically born as, and this can be male or female, or in some cases, intersex. Gender, on the other hand, is how we express someone's masculinity and femininity. It's a part of someone's internal sense of self. This can be male or female, neither, or a mix of both. There is also the term cisgender, and this refers to individuals whose gender identity aligns with the sex they were assigned with at birth. For instance, like myself, I was born female and identify as female. What different types are there for transgender people? These can be people that were born male to female, or they can be female to male. Male to female is when they are born with male anatomy, but they identify as a female. Female to male is when someone is born with female anatomy, but they identify as a male. Transgender is a way for people to really express themselves with the identity that they feel like they are and want to be. It's a way to make them feel comfortable in their own skin and be the person they want to be. What kind of experiences do transgender people face in society? Many transgender individuals undergo treatments such as hormone therapy, gender reassignment surgeries, or both as part of their transition. However, many face a lack of healthcare coverage. One of the main reasons for this is due to the lack of providers with expertise in transgender medicine. Beyond healthcare, other barriers can stem from the household or society. They can be rejected by their families or faced with discrimination. Religious ideals can affect the way that they view transgenders or that they're not of the Bible. In the employment world, they can be denied access to jobs, feel like they are uncomfortable in a workplace or situation, and can feel less supported by their managers. Now that I've provided a bit of background for what transgender is and how it affects people in society, I would like to take a moment to share some personal stories. These stories come from two individuals who transitioned from male to female and one that's female to male. I recently interviewed them and asked them a series of questions about their personal experiences about being a trans person in the community and what it's like on a day-to-day basis. The interviews come from Ashton Anders, who is a 26-year-old male who went from female to male, and Adriana Crawford, who is a 27-year-old female who transitioned from male to female. The next part, I will be reading the questions I asked, followed by each person's response. How do you describe your gender identity in your own words? Ashton states, when it comes to my gender identity, being transgender is not what defines me. That term is not what I believe that I am. Yes, I am transgender, but I am many things. For me, I just want to be seen as just another guy and not a transgender guy. I believe you transition to be who you truly are, not to just be known as transgender. When I transitioned to be a man, not known as a transgender man. Adriana states, I would say today I'm trans femme, with a little bit of gender fluidity in there, as some days I go for androgyny. I went on to ask the question, when did you first begin to understand or explore your gender? Ashton states, I really first began to understand my gender from a very young age. I believe looking back on it now, I can connect the dots. As a kid, I always seemed to gravitate more towards boy things. I wanted to wear boy clothes, I loved superheroes, and I always thought the girls in Disney Channel were beautiful. I never really seemed to like dresses or Barbie dolls or even the color pink. I always believed that's just who I was naturally. For me, it's just what I felt deep within me, straight to my core. I knew I was different. In the mirror, I didn't match what was in my head and in my heart. Adriana states, I was born a male and raised a male, unfortunately, but around 2019 to 2020, I started having thoughts that I could be someone else. I never in my life felt like I fit the role of a male despite how much I tried. Around the time of experimenting with gender, I thought, well, I possess both masculine and feminine traits, so why can't I just have both? So I wore the label of non-binary up until late 2023 to early 2024 when I noticed I tend to reject masculinity, embrace and femininity, and thought just fully presenting myself as a woman works better for me. I then asked the question, what has your journey of self-discovery looked like? Ashton replies, my journey of self-discovery was a long one of realization that I could be who I am fully without having to feel shame or embarrassment, and that it was okay to be this way, and that there was nothing wrong with me. I remember for the longest time I was ashamed of admitting that I was transgender. I thought, well, I might as well just label myself and present myself as a lesbian, and maybe it won't be as bad. Adriana states, the journey itself hasn't been an easy one. In the early days when I didn't really prioritize trying to pass off as something other than male, I was faced with a little bit of ridicule at multiple jobs and a lot in my own house. It was kind of difficult growing up in a church where the pastor would frequently refer to trans and queer people in general as garbage. You feel a small amount of guilt for it, but I got over that fortunately. The next question asks, were there any moments or people that helped you feel more seen or understood? Ashton replies, I remember that the first person that I ever came out to at a young age was my Aunt Sarah. Sarah had been so very supportive of me fully and gave me that support and love I needed in a time where I felt very scared and vulnerable. The love that she had for me never wavered in my truth. Adriana states, occasionally at my job, someone will refer to me as ma'am when trying to get my help. And that usually makes me a bit more willing to come and help them, which, considering the area I come from, they don't know I'm trans, thank God, so they're seeing me as a cis woman. My friends at ETSU have been a great source of support. I remember one evening last year I was at Tiebreakers with my friend Allie, and I think that was the very first time someone had ever referred to me as a she. I also have a friend named Ferris who helped me to really discover my true identity by being a strong source of support. Plus, she was also the person who helped me pick out my preferred name. I then asked, what kinds of challenges have you faced when trying to express your true self? Ashton states, as a transgender person, I have faced several challenges in my life trying to be my true self. Well, most of my family has been supportive. I've had particular family members that refuse to respect my name and my pronouns. These were some of the people who still use my dead name and the wrong pronouns to purposely just because they don't agree with who I truly am. For me, this is very demeaning and embarrassing to be disrespected in a way when I'm doing nothing but just trying to live. I believe it's very degrading to have zero respect from someone who's supposed to be your family and your blood. But to me, it just shows that blood isn't always thick. When you have a family member that sends you a nasty message about how you will never be a man right at the beginning of your transition, it's a very hurtful thing to process. I've never received more disrespect than that. I've gotten disrespect in the same way, maybe from one boss at one job before. For the most part, workplaces have always been receptive to me wanting to be called by a certain name or that I go by he, him pronouns. I've had coworkers in the past that talked badly about transgender people in front of me, not knowing myself I were trans. I tend to keep my mouth shut in those situations. The scary truth is, you may never know if someone who doesn't agree with you or who you are when you are trans will want to hurt you simply because you are transgender. Especially in the world we live today with who is running our government currently, it can be a bit scary of what could happen to transgender people. Adriana states, since coming out, it has caused me to lose contact with people who I thought were my friends, but I guess that eventually led to me finding my real ones. Family stuff too. The only person I've really tried talking to about it is my mother, and she didn't take it well. Since then, it's kind of just been a don't ask, don't tell thing between the two of us, as uncomfortable as it makes me. There's really only about one family member I can trust to talk about this, and that would be my aunt on my mom's side. How has the process of gender-neutral bathrooms affected you? Ashton replies, gender-neutral bathrooms haven't really affected me. For the most part, I've been in my transition for so long I pretty much pass 100% of the time. Adriana states, I try to just resort to family/gender-neutral restrooms whenever I can. I still haven't really worked up the courage to try using the women's restroom in public, but anytime I try using the men's room, I do get looks and occasionally unwanted comments like, you know this is the men's room, or am I in the right restroom? It's very awkward and uncomfortable. How has being transgender impacted your mental or emotional health? Ashton states, being transgender affected my mental health in a way that before I started my transition, I felt suffocated living as someone that I wasn't. That comes with a lot of depression. It comes with suicidal thoughts because you have an overwhelming feeling of being trapped. After starting my transition, it felt like, wow, I can finally breathe again. Adriana replies, I feel like my mental emotional health is at a higher risk since coming out and being more open, but it's mostly due to external factors that are out of my control. But it shouldn't have to be that way. I don't see being trans as a burden on my well-being. Maybe it wasn't always the case, but I think now it would be worse on my mental health to mask my gender. What's something you wish more people understood about being transgender? Ashton states, I wish more people understood the fact that we were born this way. No one would just wake up and choose to be belittled all the time, to be ridiculed, to be looked at as a person who wants to harm people solely to start rumors of who trans people are just because they don't know anything about it or don't agree with it. I wish people would understand we all just want to live peacefully and exist just as everyone else wants to. We want to be respected. We don't want to live in fear, we just want to live. You can't truly understand being transgender unless you actually are, but I wish people would understand that the best quality you could have in a life is an open mind and not a closed one. Adriana states, we just want to exist, man. There's no evil satanic communist agenda here to indoctrinate your kids, or whatever you heard your local Republican speaker say. I wish more people understood that we're not here to do harm, at least not most of us. There are trans people who are bad people, who do bad things. I could name just a few off the top of my head, but that's not justification to label us all as bad. Most importantly, I wish people would get their information on trans people from actual trans people or reliable sources, not media outlets looking to spark outrage or for clicks and views, or politicians who need a scapegoat to hide their own agendas. What would you tell your younger self or someone just beginning their transition? Ashton says, I would tell my younger self to just hold on. You'll be free one day. Don't give up and don't take your life because one day you will be free to be who you really are. I would tell the same thing to anyone just starting their transition. I'm going on 8 years since I first transitioned, and life is hard for many reasons, but don't give up. You got this, and you will feel so much better when your mind and body start finally matching and connecting as one. Having patience and grace, because it'll never be an easy journey, but it'll be worth it. Adriana states, something I would tell my younger pre-transition self is that a lot of the stuff we were taught about the world is just made up, and that you can't really grow if you stay comfortable all the time. Although my parents weren't as strict as some of the other kids we grew up around, sometimes it does feel that we were a bit sheltered, and it has affected the way I handle certain hardships today, which it also makes it difficult being open around my parents or even trying to talk to them about it. Another thing I would tell my younger self is that I don't have to prove my worth to anyone. I don't have to win the argument against my parents to be validated, especially when you can't rationally speak to someone who's already come to their own conclusion before even hearing what you have to say. Having the opportunity to interview these two individuals in the community has been really inspiring. Learning the real personal stories of people in the community affected by society has opened my eyes in so many ways. Being able to share honest and meaningful perspectives of people trying to live as who they truly are is so powerful. It doesn't matter whether they were born male or born female, what matters is their true identity. I hope that this overview and presentation have helped shed some light or just might even change your perspective. So just remember the next time you encounter a transgender person, remember that they are human just like anyone else, and they deserve respect, dignity, and acceptance.